Trump edges out Biden 51-42 in head-to-head matchup. So President Joe Biden's approval rating is 19 points underwater. His rating for handling the economy and immigration are at career lows. A record number of Americans say they've become worse off under his presidency. 3/4 say he's too old for another term, and Donald Trump is looking better in retrospect. All severe challenges for Biden in his re-election campaign ahead. 44% of Americans in the latest ABC News/Washington Post poll say they've gotten worse off financially under Biden's presidency, the most of any president in ABC Post polls since 1986. Just 37% approve of his job performance, while 56% disapprove. Still fewer approve of Biden's performance on the economy at 30%. On handling immigration at the U.S.-Mexico border, Biden's rating is even lower, with 23% approval. In terms of intensity of sentiment, 20% strongly approve of his work overall, with 45% strongly disapproving. And the 74% who say he's too old for a second term is up 6% points since May. Views that Trump is too old are also up, but to 50% in this poll. Such is down on Biden's sentiment that if a government shutdown occurs at month's end, 40% say they'd chiefly blame him and the Democrats in Congress versus 33% who say they would pin it on the Republicans in Congress, even given the GOP infighting behind the budget impasse. Trump, for his part, has improved in retrospect. When he reluctantly left office in January 2021, 38% approved of his work as president, essentially the same as Biden's rating now. But currently, looking back, 48% say they approve of Trump's performance while he was in office, matching his peak as president. Essentially, as many as 49% now disapprove, down from 60% when he left the White House. Comparison with Biden may be a factor. Among the 56% of Americans who disapprove of Biden's work in office, a wide 75% say that, looking back, they approve of Trump. It's also notable that Trump has an even split in his retrospective job approval ratings, even as most Americans continue to reject his assertion that the 2020 election was stolen from him. 60% of Americans instead say Biden legitimately won. An additional 12% have no opinion. 29% think Biden did not win legitimately. This poll could very well be an outlier because in most of the polls that we've seen, Trump does seem to have an edge. He seems to have an advantage, but nothing quite as dramatic as what we've seen in this poll. But if this is an indication of things to come, this is very bad news for a lot of people who are desperately hoping to stave off another Trump presidency. All these people who are hand-wringing about this Project 2025, this document of how to make America a theocratic fascism that has been published by the Heritage Foundation, should be very worried at this point. And I think that all these people who have sort of foisted Biden upon us as the vote blue no matter who candidate and poo-pooed other options probably should reconsider that, because it seems that the American people just flat out don't like this guy. And a lot of people are saying they just won't vote for him. 75% of voters think he's too old. Huge swaths of the voting populace feel that the economy has gotten worse under Biden than it was under Trump. And, I know there's some economic indicators that point in the other direction. But when you look at what's actually going on an American household level, we see some pretty drastic, signs. Like the fact that credit card debt has reached record highs. The fact that inflation has spiraled out of the control to the point where people feel like they can't afford anything. And the estimation of Trump has improved in comparison, up 10 percentage points. 39% approval for Trump when he left office. It was 38, I believe. And now it's 49% in retrospect. Like, on second thought. So that means there was a lot of people who were like, I hate Trump, that have kind of come around to, now that I've had a little taste of Biden, maybe Trump wasn't so bad. So, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, man. It doesn't really seem like the picture being painted here is all that rosy if you're looking to avoid a second Trump term. Now, like I said, this poll is an outlier, perhaps, and it seems to be, because we've seen other polls come out recently that have the race much closer. And this is obviously pretty disconcerting for anybody who is LGBT, because it seems like, one of the chief issues on the Republican agenda is, outlawing trans people, not just child transitioning or whatever the fuck, but across the board. There was a lot of talk in the Project 2025 document of making trans people making it pornography, like just the act of being trans in and of itself is pornography. So, I think it's kind of like, why is this happening? And to me, the answer to why it's happening is pretty obvious, because these people, as I've told you on numerous occasions, these people who are starting to look at Trump with, like a wistful, fond remembrance, these are all voters who vote on the thing that voters mostly vote on, which is the economy.
On October 6th, the Deep Fat Fried live show and meetup is coming to Las Vegas, featuring TJ, Scotty, Paul's Ego, musical guest, The God Bombs. Get your tickets now, available in the description section down below. Be there or be dead.
Or square. Now, they think that Trump is better at economy than Biden. Now, are they right about that? Probably not. Probably not really, because there's not a whole huge amount of difference between the two. But Biden was president presiding over a bunch of inflation. Trump was president during a fucking period of economic expansion. So it's kind of like, okay, I want that guy back. Even though he probably had, there's, odds are that like neither of these guys had much impact on any of this stuff, because the economy, for the most part, kind of runs itself, and you can't really point to any policy that either of them implemented that created something new. I guess you can point to Trump killing TPP or Trump's trade policies as like a difference, but there's really not much to indicate that like that's what played any sort of significant role in any of this. So probably the average voter is mistaken. But, one thing, too, is that whether you like Trump or not, and I obviously don't, I think he was much more effective as a communicator as president, because Trump was constantly out there, constantly touting his record, constantly staying on message. And Biden, it's like you almost never see the fucking guy. He is a shadow. He's a phantom. He comes out every once in a while. He blathers through a few incoherent, incomplete sentences. And then he's gone again for 3 more months, This country is full of people who are, I believe, inherently pretty selfish, inherently pretty self-absorbed. And I truly believe that if tomorrow LGBT people were being rounded up into camps, a huge percentage of this country, regardless of their politics, simply would not genuinely care. The positive side of that, I think, is that the opposite is also true. If you were to give trans people broad human rights protections and all that stuff, most people are not going to care. This stuff doesn't really matter to the voting public. It's an issue that maybe you can get some people riled up about here and there. Maybe you get a few angry diatribes out of it, get a little bit of political entertainment out of it. But at the end of the day, people vote on the economy. People vote on their own pocketbooks. People vote on what's the price of gas, what's the price of bread, what's the price of milk. And the Democratic Party has, for a few election cycles now, tried to put forth the case to the American people that they don't need to do anything for you because they're better than the other guy. That's all they have to. They think the only thing they have to do is just be better than the Republicans. Well, this is the result. The American people aren't buying that narrative. The American people aren't buying that. If Democrats want to maintain power, if Democrats want to keep Republicans out of office, then they have to be worth a fuck. They have to do things to improve the lives of everyday people. And if they don't do things to improve the lives of everyday people, then they will not win elections. And I think it's as simple as that. Trump inherited a recovering economy from the Obama administration after the 2008 financial crisis, and he takes credit for it. Like I said, I don't think that either of these guys can really take credit or blame for the economies under their presidencies. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter to the average voter. The average voter does not give a shit about some sort of in-depth economic analysis. You know what they care about? How am I doing? And who's president? Am I doing well? I am. Trump is president. Okay, he's good. Am I doing shitty? I am. Biden's president. He's fucking me. It doesn't go beyond that. For, I don't want to say the majority of Americans, but I kind of do want to say the majority of Americans. I don't think that it's much more sophisticated than that for most people. I wish we could focus on rent, though. It's rough out here. Well, that's the thing, is like there are so many issues. There are so many issues right now, economic issues, where the Democrats could strongly differentiate themselves from the Republicans. Unions. The Democrats could be way more pro-union, but unfortunately, you have Trump out there positioning himself as a pro-union president. He didn't actually govern like one, but he pays lip service to it. Now, Biden has actually done more for unions in his presidency than Trump ever did for his. But he doesn't go out there and sell it to the American people. He's not out there touting it, flaunting it, talking about what a fucking great guy he is, talking about how he improved the ability of American workers to strike, talking about how he, gutted strike busting. So he doesn't sell himself. Kyle Klinsky sickened me. I subscribe to Brianna Joy Gray's channel. Kyle is a capitulating little bitch now. Third parties can't win, so we got to vote for the Dems. Never thought I'd see the day. I mean, I understand where Kyle's coming from. I'm not gonna shit talk him. I don't really know much about Brianna Joy Gray. I don't know about her politics or her political philosophy. I do know Kyle pretty well. Here's the thing about the logic that Kyle's employing. The same logic being employed by a great number of left-wing streamers right now. Trump represents a tangent of fascism in the Republican Party. that is now, I think, the dominant force in the Republican Party. And in my opinion, has been prior even to Trump. I think that we saw these tendencies in the Bush administration. We saw these tendencies in the meteoric popularity of Sarah Palin. So they're thinking like, oh, we got to stop this. We got to stop this at all costs. So if we have to settle for a sort of, muddling, befuddled Joe Biden over fascism, then yes, that's preferable. But I don't think they're really thinking beyond one election cycle. I think in the same way that so many American corporations become obsessed with the next quarter's earnings, and they don't think about the long game. They don't think about the big picture. I think the same thing is happening with a lot of people on the left in terms of their thinking. I think they're not thinking beyond this one election. Because I don't think long-term the strategy of continuously putting forth and voting for Democrat candidates whose main platform is just, we're better than that. Better than them. Just a little better than them. I don't think that's going to move the needle. I don't think that's I don't think you're advancing any sort of social progress via that. And I don't think you're going to win elections. I don't think you're going to win presidential elections that way. The Democratic Party has historically been the party that is supposed to represent blue-collar, working-class people. And, it's not doing that. It's not doing that, in any way, shape, or form. Republicans have always relied on, social issues, wedge issues for votes. They've always been the ones that run on, abortion or gays or this or that. They don't have any blue collar enticements, but now it's like the Democrats don't have that either. So how are they going to win? Basically, it seems like the Democratic strategy at this point is America continues to elect right-wing nut jobs. Those right-wing nut jobs destroy the country piece by piece, sell it off to the highest bidder, lower taxes on the rich, move us more and more close to some sort of autocratic / theocratic fascist regime where, we the people have little to no representation. And then the Democrats are like, well, we're better than that. Well, what are you going to do? Well, we're better than that. And so the country just drifts further and further right. The Democrats have to do less and less and less because the Republican Party just continuously, how many election cycles is it before they're just openly Nazis? Like we're rebranding the Nazi Party. Maybe 3. And all the Democrats have to do, literally, imagine that the Republican Party is 3 or 4 election cycles from now, just like an out and out. We are just blatantly the Nazi Party. We want camps. We want global domination, whatever the fuck. It's that bad. And the Democrats, are just like, well, at least we're not that, but they're worse than they are now. They're let's say they're where the Republicans are now. Basically we're going to be voting for someone who's the equivalent of Trump because the Republicans are now putting something forth, someone who's the equivalent of Hitler. Is that the direction we want to go? We just want to continuously ratchet to the right with this vote blue no matter who strategy, where we don't hold Democrats accountable for anything, where we just think well, as long as they're not the fascist, it's okay. That's not going to win. That's not what the American people want. Most American people, most of the people in this country do not give a fuck about fascism. They don't. If this country is fucking fascist tomorrow, they're going to be like, oh man, that's crazy. And they're still going to go to their fucking Taco Bell. Still going to watch their fucking trash TV. Still going to fucking watch their goddamn shitty sports ball. Still going to fucking go get milkshakes at Baskin Robbins. Still going to fucking jerk off. Like, they don't give a shit. While you're fucking in the camps. Because you fucking, you were found guilty of spreading communist ideology. So now you're going to be in the death camp. And while you're in there, what's fucking Joe Sixpack doing? He's fucking sitting on his couch, drinking his beer like he always was. Why? Because you didn't fucking want to do anything to appeal to that motherfucker? Because you were too good to come down to his level and give him a little fucking something for his vote? I don't know. I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's a pretty silly strategy to just be like, nah, we already have fascism. Let's not pretend. No, we don't. No, we don't. Well, you'll know when we're there, and it's not yet. We're not as far off as we want to be, but we're not quite there. They seem to want to bring back something akin to feudalism. Well, yeah. I mean, we've been slowly drifting back. I mean, we've seen the return of the company town. We've seen the return of, I mean, like, basically Amazon is the company store at this point. You know, you work for them and then you turn around and give all your money back to them. Now that Biden has won once, nobody remembers what made Hillary fail. Exactly. I mean, let's be real about why Biden won. Biden only won because people had suffered through 4 years of Trump's presidency, and it was fresh in their memories. But now the memory has faded. The country has been no better under Biden. In fact, in some ways, it's gotten worse, especially when it comes to like the affordability of simple goods and services has gone way up. Like the affordability has gone way down. The prices have gone way up. People blame the Biden administration for that, rightly or wrongly. Wrongly, in my opinion. I think that most of like the inflation that has occurred has simply been corporate greed. I think it's almost inarguable the fact that most of them have continued to generate record profits while suppressing wages and raising prices and doing the shrinkflation of reducing package sizes. Democracy is dead. People have no future. All media is centralized in the hands of a few people, and there's no expectation of privacy or safety. Not fascism. Democracy is not dead. The people have simply been trained into learned helplessness. And they're trained into learned helplessness because they're told, not just by the right, by the way, but they're told this left, right, and center, that voting for who you actually want is a losing strategy. Voting for someone who would actually shake things up, that's a sucker's bet. So the people have learned if democracy is dead, it's not dead because the machinery of democracy has been destroyed. It's dead because the people have been gaslit into not voting for what they actually want and instead making strategic votes. The people have no future. Well, we have a future. It's just bleak. All media is centralized in the hands of a very few people? No. Not all media. All major media, sure. Still plenty of independent media sources you could turn to. Not saying that all of them are great. In fact, some of them are even worse. But they exist. And whatever the media, look at where the trust is in the media. Most people don't trust the fucking media, nor should they. The media is corporate owned. They manufacture consent. There's no expectation of privacy or safety. There's never been an expectation of fucking safety anywhere on Earth. Expectation of privacy, maybe that's existed a few times here and there. So yeah, I don't think we're at fascism yet. You know how you know we're at fascism is when when there is a leader for life and there is one party and there's no opposition and there's no hope of opposition rising up other than through any when the only fucking chance that you could possibly have to change the system is through armed revolt, then you're at fascism. And we're not there. I know maybe you want to be there, but we're not. The right here is media that is not centralized. Granted, a billionaire somewhere is making money on it, but people like TJ are still allowed to say anti-fascist things with little to no repercussions, for the time being. Like, when you're truly living under fascism, there will be no dissent against fascism that isn't retaliated against. If you're truly living under fascism, then if I come on here and say, like, we should oppose this, I'm dead, or I'm in the camp or something. That's when you've arrived. We're still allowed dissent here. The duopoly is technically one party. The differences are a facade. I think that's an overstatement. Because, I hate when people try to make the argument that the two parties are one. Because all you have to do to disprove that is find any one difference. And then it's like, see, you're wrong. What I prefer to say is that there are no meaningful differences between the two parties. Because meaningful is a distinction that requires some argumentation. And then you can really get into the nitty-gritty of things. Dissent that works, on the other hand, not so much. Yeah, there is a certain, I think, cowing of our dissent. It's like, I've talked about this before, but it's like you have a movie like V for Vendetta, where this is an anarchist sort of superhero that is at war against a, fascist theocratic state and is using terrorism against them. So that's a pretty based story. And there's, this fascist state has persecuted homosexuals and religious minorities and racial minorities and so on and so forth. And, and the hero, the anarchist hero, has taken up arms against them and is leading a revolution against them. But, that's given to us as, here's a huge blockbuster movie, and here's merchandise from it, and buy the shirt, and so this thing is just rolled right into the capitalist framework, right? It's like they'll sell you the fantasy of opposing them. They've monetized your dissent. Usually they both serve corporations. Any differences have no effect on how they serve those corporations. That's true. I agree with you there, but that doesn't mean there's no difference. In my government high school class, we were literally told by the teacher from the textbook that voting third party is throwing away your vote. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by that at all. And it's a very common refrain. And look, I'm not necessarily here. I want to make it clear, I'm not necessarily here today to tell you to vote third party or anything like that. I'm not here to tell you to just vote third party for the sake of voting third party. What I would advocate is vote for the best candidate. Vote for the one whose values most closely align with your own, whether they be in the mainstream or the underground. Vote your actual fucking conscience. Like, isn't that what voting is supposed to be for? Everyone is supposed to vote for what they actually want. I don't know. It seems like you get a little further with that. Maybe not in one election cycle. Maybe not in two. But I don't know. I think eventually. Certainly better than this. Certainly better than this status quo, where the country has drifted further and further to the right in my lifetime, where the Republican Party is sort of more and more becoming an openly theocratic, openly fascistic, openly pro discrimination party. Because like the Republican Party of today is doing and saying things that they never would have done 30 years ago. There's messaging going on now that never would have happened 30 or 40 years ago. You know, and it's not necessarily the things they're against, it's the way in which they're against them. Because now it just seems like political violence is very much on the table for that party. It seems like talks of, jailing dissidents and, openly discriminatory policies are just like par for the course. And that's not to say that's never been the case in American history before. But I remember there being, at least in terms of rhetoric, in my lifetime, a much more kind and gentle variant of the Republican Party. Now, in practice, they still did a lot of the horrible things, but it's become much more brazen, I think, in my lifetime. The difference between the two parties is one actively fights against rights and the other passively lets them be taken away. Yeah. I mean, they'll put up the most tokenistic fight possible. If the issue comes up for a vote, the Democrats will be like, nah, but they're not going to do anything. They're not going to go to bat for you, really. Hey, trans rights are being stripped away. Democrats will vote against it, but will they try to create a framework where, trans people are more protected? Will they try to bolster legal protections for trans people in this country? I mean, as of yet, I haven't really heard of them doing that. Yeah, there's like a lot more Civil War talk these days than there is when I was growing up. Although I did grow up in the South, so I guess I'm not as surprised to hear that. I grew up where you'd hear the South will rise again and things of that nature. So the idea of another civil war, was not super foreign to me growing up. But a lot of this other stuff, is. Republican 20 years ago, I'm against marriage, but I support civil unions. Republicans now, I think gays need to go back in the closet and stop shoving it down our throats. I mean, a lot of them go further than saying that they need to go back in the closet. A lot of them say they need to go into prison. They're brainwashing kids and they're destroying the moral fabric of society, and, they need to be criminally punished for being gay. So for them, it's a lot worse than just like, go back in the closet, you old queen. For them, it's like, right this way to the fucking death camp. And they've like, I guess I haven't heard one outright say like, yay, death camps yet. But like, I don't feel like we're that far off. I don't know what kind of insane rhetoric the Republicans would have to engage in for anybody to stop and go like, But it seems like they're able to go pretty damn far these days without much of a public pushback. Because we live in a day and age where, like, Republicans are literally out there burning books like the Nazis, and it's not really hurting them in the polls here. Seems like they're doing pretty well. Now, I don't know. I don't think that means that these people in this poll, I don't think that means that they're all like pro-book burning or pro-Nazi or whatever. I think most of them just don't care. I think most of them are just like, yeah, I mean, look, if the book-burning Nazi party can, help with my rent, then, if they can help get inflation under control, then, lesser of two evils, man. Because let's remember, even if this particular poll is an outlier, the other polls don't show much different. Like, Trump consistently wins these fucking polls. It's not usually by, 11 points or whatever, or 9 points, sorry. But it's usually by like 2 or 3. And it's consistent. Consistently, Trump seems to win these polls. Consistently, the American people have looked at the status quo of Joe Biden and reflected back on the status quo that was Donald Trump and said, yeah, we'll take Trump again. Now that we've seen both, we would prefer Trump. So, like, you know, I mean, like, what more can really be said there? You think these criminal proceedings against Trump will erode these leads? I think if they were going to, they would have already. Like, the fact that Trump has been indicted 92 times and is facing charges in multiple states for multiple felonies, and he's still running, and he's still doing well in polls. I mean, it doesn't really seem like the people care. Doesn't really seem like anyone gives a crap about that. And once again, I think it's because people don't care about any of this crap. People don't, I mean, like, people don't care that, like, Trump's a fucking crook. They know he's a crook. They pretty much think all politicians are crooks. They're pretty much right. So they don't give a shit about that. They don't give a shit about LGBT people. They don't give a shit about black people. They don't give a shit about anybody other than themselves. Most Americans are selfish fucking pricks. And at the end of the day, they just care about the price of gas, price of bread, price of milk. How high is my rent? How good's my paycheck? That's it. That's what they vote on. And they think Trump can do better for them on that than Biden can. In other words, it's the economy, stupid. You know, so if you want an encouraging note on this, Biden has done well in on some of these union fronts. You know, Biden has, made some decisions that have strengthened the ability of people to unionize. Biden says that he is going to go join the UAW workers on the picket line, which kind of signals that he's more taking their side than he is the big three automakers. I think Biden needs to continue on this trajectory. He needs to continue putting out pro-union and pro-worker messaging. He needs to do everything in his power to show that he is on the side of the working class, because that's the only way he's going to win re-election. Now, it's not going to help with the age thing, but it will help tremendously with this perception that he is terrible on the economy. So that messaging needs to be out there in the zeitgeist yesterday. But unfortunately, one of the many failings of Joe Biden is he's not an effective communicator anymore. I mean, he never really was that effective of a communicator to begin with, but at least he could get through a sentence here and there. But now, on top of, already being a pretty gaffe-prone politician, even in his youth, now he's lost more than a step. I won't go to the hyperbolic place of saying he's dementia-addled, as I've done in the past, because I don't want to seem like I'm trying to put forth a diagnosis on the guy. But it's clear that his age has affected his brain. It's clear that he is not what he once was, and what he once was, honestly, was not all that impressive to begin with. I can't wait for Trump to get elected, only for nothing to change when it comes to inflation, but they'll delude themselves it has. I mean, of course they will. I mean, look, the hardcore Trumpies, it doesn't matter. If Trump gets elected and then lights America on fire, they're going to be like, well, at least it's nice and warm. Like, they don't care. We're not talking about them. We're not talking about the, 30% of Americans that love Trump no matter what. We're not talking about the 30% of Americans that are Democrat no matter what. We're talking about the 40% of, and we're talking about voters here, by the way, not, I guess, all Americans, because if you really, like, a considerable chunk of this country doesn't even fucking care enough about this shit to even vote. Like, they're just, like, totally blithe, whatever. I'm not saying that all non-voters are just apathetic, by the way. I know that some people just have, like, conscientious objections to voting as a whole in the context of this country, but But a lot of them are just apathetic fucks that just don't care. But of the people who vote, there's 30% that are like, yeah, Trump no matter what. 30% that are like, oh, blue no matter what, because my daddy was a Democrat, blah, blah, blah. But then there's, 40% that are just like, whoever, man. Whoever fucking gives me my little pet issue thing. And most of their little pet issue things are economic issues. You look at what people vote on, people will tell you in exit polls and shit what issues matter to them. It's always economic issues. It's always economic issues in this country. Because, if you're gay issues matter to you. If you're bi or lesbian or trans, those issues matter to you. If you're black, those issues matter to you. But if you're not those things, if you're not any of those minority groups, those issues are kind of like, whatever. That's their problem. How much is bread? How much is milk? How much is gas? What's my paycheck say?